Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. This is Starrapter, joined by Milton and Ben for Outer Rim Transmission, episode number 27. On this week's episode, we're dedicating it to our part 2 for our Star Wars Visions review and discussion. We have 6 more episodes to talk about tonight. Tonight, we are talking all about the Village Bride. We are talking about the Ninth Jedi, TOB1, The Elder, Lop and Ocho, and of course, Akakiri. So we're going to break those down in detail, give our thoughts, as well as just give our overall thoughts on Star Wars Visions, which is a big breakthrough for Star Wars. People are chatting about it. The first ever Star Wars anime series, all from Japanese studios. So jumping right into our week in Star Wars, I'm going to throw it over to Ben. How's it going, man?
Good. Just another good week, getting colder, getting ready for some family pictures tomorrow, so that should be fun. And then, for my week in Star Wars, nothing too exciting. Just, played some Old Republic Commando, and was just playing a little bit in that, and yeah, just played through the first level of Republic Commando this week. So that was, that's always fun, especially after us just getting out of Bad Batch over the summer. So it's just a nice, like diving into a Star Wars type experience.
Now, did your playthrough revolve around the cool action figure that they revealed this week? I don't know if you've seen images of the Black Series Commando.
Yeah, that's pretty much what sparked my like. I was like, man, I saw that Commando action figure. I was like, you know what, like, let me turn on some Republic Commando and play this for a little bit. So I was in the mood to for some Republic Commando stuff. So I was playing through that a little bit, and that's always just so much fun. Like, it's so classic. Just, the iconic scene, even though it's in the trailer for the game, it's still one of the most fun scenes to play through, like early in the game. Like, you and the squad, you're getting ready to, blow open a door. You go up, set the explosive on the door, and, they're like,
Yep.
They say whatever, and they blow the door open and throw the grenade through, and you charge through, like, fighting all the droids and everything, and the big creature. Like, that part of the mission is so much fun to play, just because it's like, I don't know, it just brings back nostalgia. It's iconic. From the first trailer. Like, that's one of the shots everybody remembers from that game. So, it was just a lot of fun, like, playing through that.
The crazy part is, the more I think about it, because I did take out my original Xbox collection one day as I'm like cleaning up the room and stuff, and I think that's the one Star Wars game I don't own, like one of the ones that came out in that era. For some reason, well, actually, I don't think I own that or Obi-Wan Kenobi for the Xbox, the original Xbox. So, but I do own Republic Commando through backwards compatibility. I think they were doing like games for gold, and every month they give you like a free game on Xbox if you're like an Xbox Live subscriber or whatever. So I got it a long time ago, and I gotta jump in, and I think I bought it as part of like a Steam deal where it was like 99 cents because they give like games away practically for free during some of those sales. But yeah, no, the game I had fond memories. I definitely remember renting it and beating it in like a weekend. But it's not your typical game, because I like how they use kind of like the same sort of engine and vibe as Ubisoft's Rainbow Six, where you're just commanding your soldiers around. It's more tactical, less just like run and gun like Halo. So yeah, I hope they give us a spiritual successor someday, with Lucasfilm Games, like every other week announcing a new game or rumor of a new game. I still am waiting for that day when they announce like a successor to that, so.
I've always said, I think the best thing they need to do, I've said it, way before even, we've had even Disney Star Wars. I remember saying this back in high school and everything back in the day, like, with the sequel of that game, it should literally just be called Republic Commando Order 66. Like, you should be going and like hunting down Jedi, because that would up like the ante of the game so much more. Right. I think. And, it's just every game, I feel like in general, I mean, I guess that's almost like a knock on a lot of gaming is like, I just like, I want to play as the villain sometimes, everything. It's always the hero's perspective, It's like, come on. Like 95% of the games are from heroes' perspectives. Like a Star Wars game from like the villain's perspective would be so much more fun, in my opinion. Especially like if you're the Republic Commando, like hunting down Jedi. Like, it doesn't even have to be obviously like, known Jedi. Like it can just be just random like Jedi they make for the game specifically. Like I've always said that would be so much fun to do a Commando Order 66.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been a lot of games that you mentioned it, Ben, where you revolve around at least starting with a bad character. I mean, you look at the classic Force Unleashed, right? You're going around doing Vader's bidding, going around killing Jedi and whatnot until you turn like halfway through the game. Same thing
Yep.
happened with Battlefront too. With
Yep.
Inferno Squad, you're playing as Iden Versio. I think it's literally only 3 or 4 missions out of the maybe 10 or 12
Yep.
before you
Right.
become a rebel. So I know a lot of people were kind of irked by that. Like, hey, let's just be the bad guy the whole game. Screw it.
That was my
Like
knock on that campaign
yeah,
was I was like, why turn? Like why? Like the to me as well, like the demographic that's playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's probably not just like really little kids playing a shooter type game, you know? Like I'm sure it's probably like mid-teens to our age range. So it's like, we can handle playing, from the villain perspective. Like, it's not going to like hurt our psyche like to play as the villains over just playing as the heroes or like the classic, turn halfway through the game type thing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so fun to be having Star Wars games. I'm still trying to hear your updates on Fallen Order, where you are currently in the game.
So it's still where it got left off at.
Right.
We're on pause right now.
And I'll throw it over to you, Villain. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good. It's good to be back on the podcast like always. My week in Star Wars was actually fairly simple. Um, I was actually at work and my boss actually like called me within the office. He's like, "Hey, man, did you see that Boba Fett is coming out this December?" And I was like, "Yeah, I knew it was coming, but I know it was coming like this soon." And we just talked about that. And it's funny how like two grown men in their 30s at a professional like job talking about Star Wars when we should be actually working. So like I had that encounter. Also, my buddy Anthony hit me up and he was like, "Hey, have you seen that Star Wars Visions yet?" And I was
Oh,
like, "Yeah, I just watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes." He's like, "It's a good," and we just started talking about it. And we talked about the stories and how the animation is. And I know he's into anime, so he would like it. And like again, it's nice that Star Wars can bring people together. And I don't see my friend Anthony often, but it's just he knows I'm the Star Wars guy, so he hits me up to say, "Hey, is this good? Is that good? What do you think about this?" So that was pretty much my week, was just interacting with people about Star Wars, talking about the new properties coming out, which is cool though because I know for a fact both of those guys aren't like Star Wars hardcore fans like we are. But it's nice that the marketing hit him in a way that was like, "Oh, this is something new. Like, come check it out." It was nice just talking about that because how Disney and Lucasfilm has marketed their brand thus far over the last like couple years.
yeah. So this friend of yours that you mentioned about the Star Wars Visions, he's primarily like an anime type of
Yeah,
fan, or
yeah, he's into like Cowboy Bebop and all that, like
okay.
Attack on Titan, that type of stuff. Dragon Ball Z. Like he and I grew up on that stuff. So I told him, I said, I think I pretty much messaged him. I was like, "Hey, I think the Twins episode, you're gonna love it." And also too, my brother should be watching right now. He came up this past weekend to our parents' house, and he actually asked me about Visions. And the first thing I said, like, "Okay, you need to watch this clip of the Twins." And I said, "Pretty much this is Star Wars Dragon Ball Z." And he watched like the 2 minutes of it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is fire!" Like, and I showed him the first like 2 minutes of the what's the first episode?
The duel.
The duel.
The duel.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, that looks dope." Like, and I'm pretty sure he started watching it. I don't know if he finished it, but he's going to watch it. So it's cool that Star Wars, their new properties, can bring people to have a conversation, which is cool. That's what I like about this property because anyone can talk about it.
Right. There's so much discussion to be had, and we're gonna get into the weeds with it tonight. Of course, we're dedicating our entire like hour and a half, 2 hour show tonight just about the Star Wars Visions episode. You touched on it briefly. Yes, we got the date for Book of Boba Fett, December 29th. We got a cool poster. Yeah, there's not really much else to say about that, so we'll push that on the back burner. We'll talk more about that next week. But it's really neat, like having people that have a certain affinity for certain mediums, like such as your friend that has a big interest in anime, and like being like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, this is grabbing more Star Wars fans from other corners of different fandoms. So, yeah, I mean, they're definitely hitting their stride. Disney is hitting the right notes here with getting new people on board with their different properties. So it's good stuff. But yeah, I love that whole thing where you're just in the break room hey, did you see that episode of Visions? You know, because I have a couple people at my job that watch Star Wars pretty regularly, and I'm like, hey, did you check out that Visions episode and this and or that series and whatnot. So it's always fun to just kind of jive through and through together.
Right.
Yeah, so for me, as far as mine's not, again, mine's not directly related to Star Wars, but I've been watching this awesome series on Amazon called The Boys in preparation to going to. You
So
seen
good.
it?
Oh, I've seen it already. I had my brother watching it. Guess how much it was good. Like, it's great. So as I was seeing you talk about it in the group chat, I'm gonna let you finish, but I didn't say anything. I just want you to watch it. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. So, and I literally just finished watching the last episode of season 2 about 30 minutes before we started recording this. So I'm like, I want to talk about this right now, but this is a Star Wars podcast, so I'll simmer down. But what I will say is at the end of season 1, the last episode, I'm sitting there watching. It's like midnight, so I'm kind of like drowsy. I'm like, I'm trying to stay awake because it's at a slower part or whatever. And all of a sudden, I hear a familiar voice. I'm like, no, they didn't bring this actor in here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Moff Gideon. Literally, Giancarlo Esposito is in this show, and I don't know how I didn't know he's in the show because usually I do my homework. When it comes to like Star Wars actors, I usually kind of like through osmosis, like know different projects that they were part of at some point. And I don't know how that he just like went right under the radar because I loved him in Breaking Bad. I love him in Better Call Saul. Of course, Star Wars is killing it as Moff Gideon, but I had no idea that he plays this character of Edgar in The Boys as head of the Vault Industries. Like, I'm like, what the hell's happened? So I literally like kind of did this in my seat, like at midnight. I'm like, okay, I'm awake now.
Yeah, no, it's legit. And like, even again, I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but I know season 3's coming soon. I'm pretty sure they're done filming season 3, and I think it's going to be premiering like in the next month or two. I think so. But yeah, that show, man, it's so good, so good.
So that means I have time to start catching up real.
Yeah.
soon.
Oh,
Dude,
guess
I'm,
what?
like, Ben, the first episode of season 1, like the first 5 minutes will be like, whoa, what am I watching?
Yeah,
Dang.
I watched the entire series in 5 days, so there you go.
Oh, wow.
I watched.
Yeah.
I was like, boom, 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 boom. Like I could. It's like Breaking Bad or some of these other really big streaming shows where like they leave off really good pacing, and like each episode ends, and you're like, I gotta watch next. I gotta watch the next. And it's just for those of you, you know, we're talking about this. You're probably like, what the heck is it? Real quick, kind of Cliff Notes version is it's a very mature, gritty take on superheroes and corporations controlling superheroes for the benefit of stockholders and shares and media blitz and everything else. So it's like very down to earth compared to like your shiny Marvel and DC, which is usually a little darker. Like this, like just wipes the floor with the grittiness.
This is pretty
of DC.
much like real world. Like, what would superheroes be like in the real world with celebrity, fame, marketing, like all the pressures of what real life entertainers, celebrities, and people in the media would do. You know, like that's how I look at it.
Sounds interesting.
Oh,
it's legit.
It's Emmy nominated, and now I know why, because it was up with The Mandalorian for its season 2 as well for drama of the year. It's like huge for a superhero show to even be in that category is insane. Like it's never that way. And same thing with Mandalorian. We were like, whoa, a sci-fi thing is going to be involved with like people like Queen's Gambit and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? So definitely can't recommend this show enough for any of you that are even interested. I know they're having the reason why I watched it is because and this is my next topic, and I'll explain the shirt and everything, is I'm going to New York Comic Con next week, and they're having a boys panel. So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's a good time to watch this show since I'll go to the panel and check it out. So yeah, speaking of shirt, I have official merch here for Outer Rim Transmission. I'll give you guys a better look. Okay, so I have this shirt color in different colors. We have sleeveless. We have sweatshirt hoodies. You can go to teespring.com Outer Rim Transmission to get your own. I'll have that posted in a link below. So we got that. As I mentioned last week, I also have stickers I'm giving out. I'm giving out little pins. So I'll be at New York Comic Con October 7th through the 10th. That is next Thursday through Sunday. I'll be there. 2 of the days I will be cosplaying, so you might see me walking around as a dark Jedi, and another day as like a hand warrior from Daredevil, like a red ninja looking guy. So I might have stuff with me somehow when I'm wearing the costumes, but you'll generally see me wearing this shirt walking around the convention, or my Starrapter shirt. So if you guys see me there, definitely say hi, and I'll give you free stuff because everybody loves getting free stuff at Comic-Con. So
Right.
I'm excited. Just getting a name out there. You know, shaking hands and different things, kind of promote ourselves a little bit here. So,
Let's
as
get
far
it.
as like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. As far as like Star Wars content, they're a little bit light this year at New York Comic Con. Usually they have like a publishing panel and a Hasbro panel and like a whole bunch of cool stuff. But a lot of the big movie properties are not going to be there. Marvel's not going to be there. DC, Star Wars, but they are going to have a couple of the voice actors. So we're going to get D. Bradley Baker, which we all know from Bad Batch. So he'll be having his own panel. So I'll definitely give my thoughts on what's going on there. But other than that, like they have a boys panel, they have a Ghostbusters Afterlife panel, they have a decent amount of TV stuff. So, and they usually do always have more of the TV. San Diego Comic Con usually has more of the movie stuff. But we shall see. I'm excited to just get back into the good old cons.
Yeah, yeah. New York Comic Con, for what I remember, because they do a virtual panel too, where they show a lot of their stuff or some of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like San Diego or Star Wars Celebration. But I know
Mm-hmm.
New York Comic Con is where a lot of the TV shows go, the series, that type of thing, which is cool though. It's nice to have that like that difference from like San Diego Comic Con or D23 or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
And like I said, I feel like it's a little more intimate compared to the other cons, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard mostly like when it comes to New York City Comic Con specifically, I might be wrong, but I feel like The Walking Dead always seems like it has a presence,
Yes.
or you see
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of The Walking Dead stuff. Like that's my just if I think New York City Comic Con, I think Walking Dead. Like that's my instant like association, I would say.
Well, Ben,
I
that's
literally-
because I remember like years ago, Walking Dead used to come out like
Yep.
a week or two before or after New York Comic Con, so they always
Yep.
were prep up. They always were prep up for that particular because I know in like Fear the Walking Dead would in like end of summer or whatever
Yep.
earlier, and then Walking Dead would start promoting themselves for the fall.
Mhm.
That was like
it would
the
usually be
Halloween
end of
kickoff.
October,
Yeah.
early November was when it would
Right,
come
right,
out.
right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
then New York Comic Con always like was around. That was perfect marketing for that show. So
Yeah.
I think like the first couple seasons they really used New York Comic Con to market like their product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just smart.
They would literally have the entire like 2 to 5,000, I forget how big it is, but like part of Madison Square Garden would literally be like a huge panel room for The Walking Dead
Right.
because they would get that many people and it would be packed full. But it's really funny because they every year, they have the badges to get in line. They scan the badge so you're legit getting into the con. You always wear one around your neck, lanyards, but they're always Walking Dead characters. Like it'd be Daryl or it'd be all the different characters on there. But this is the first year that we don't have Walking Dead lanyards, and I'm so excited about it because I am damn tired of getting those things. And everybody else is happy. They're like, yes, no Walking Dead, because like Walking Dead, AMC's not going to be there, so they don't have them to promote. But I think it's like the series is like almost over anyway, I think at this point.
Yeah, it's the
So
final season.
Yeah, it's the final season. I mean,
Oh,
they're
okay.
heading into their trilogy of Rick movies, but
oh, okay. Yeah,
but
see,
those are to be determined when they are coming out.
I fell off the wagon around I think season 6 or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I think a lot of people did. I mean, the show's not trash, but it's like you can just take that show.
Well,
It's one of those shows you got to be in the mood for, I think.
yeah.
well, objectively, I don't know how much you've seen of it as of late, Milton, but I feel like last season, I feel like the show's definitely back on an upswing, but it took, from season 6 to season 10 to get back, going again, I feel like. And, now it's too late.
Right.
But
Yeah, like I said, I haven't watched probably since season. I think it was when was it? What season was it when you're the guy with the hammer or with the bat?
Negan.
Negan.
Negan. It was around that time where he killed like the 5.
Glenn.
I mean, spoilers.
Yeah.
But like that was probably I watched that episode and stopped watching. So I was like, okay, I need to just let it I need to binge it eventually. So
Yeah, it gets better.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah.
Friday
so
night,
you guys,
Friday night Walking Dead podcast.
yeah.
we're talking about the boys. We're talking about Walking Dead, everything but Star Wars at this point. But we are going to talk about Star Wars.
Speaking of Star Wars, so I will say this because you're going to Comic-Con. I'm sure the CW or DC TV is going to have some stuff there for like the CW shows. I've been watching some of the old CW shows like Arrow, Flash, and like a lot of the crossover stuff. And I forgot how many Star Wars references are in those shows. Like, I know in the crossover, the one part of it for the Crisis crossover, Oliver Queen Arrow, he's wearing like that dark hoodie, and Ryan Choi's like, he's like, man, he's like, I love that hoodie, very Sith look or whatever. And I was
Yep.
like, and I didn't rewind. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like the Star Wars reference. It was so dope, and it was perfect humor. In the middle of a crisis, they drop a Star Wars humor, which is funny. I'm thinking like, Star Wars is just great. And no matter whatever property you're in, or like Cisco Ramon, who's in Flash,
Oh
talks
yeah,
about Star Wars references all the time.
all the time.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So out this week for Star Wars, we have 3 comics this week. We have Star Wars issue number 17. This is volume 2, and this, of course, is still part of War of the Bounty Hunters, which is ending as of this month. Yes, the long haul of this crossover is finally coming to an end. It's had its ups and downs, but this issue was definitely an up for the series as a tie-in issue for the miniseries. It really tells a great story about Lando Calrissian and about how he goes from this scoundrel that sells out, Han Solo to Vader and everybody's angry to him, to where he starts to gain some credibility with the rebels, because what happens is they're all in the Millennium Falcon, and there is basically Chewie, Lobot, Leia, and Lando. But they got hit by a seismic charge from Boba Fett's Slave One as they're trying to get to a shuttle that's carrying Han and Carbonite. So their ship is completely knocked out. The Falcon is dead in the water, so to speak. So Lando, having had this ship years and years ago, has an idea of how to get it back up and running. So he goes into this very dangerous compartment, like underneath where the hyperdrive is, but it's kind of like going through the fritz. So there's a small chance he could die, basically. So he's like, I'm going to take a risk because there's people I care about. So he goes in there and he's actually talking to L3, who was from, of course, Solo Star Wars source, even though her brain was like integrated into the Millennium Falcon. So like, it wasn't actual like dialogue of her like coming through, but you could tell that like Lando recognized like her being part of the system, and like kind of like sweet talking her and stuff like that, and be like, look, I won't ever forget you. And like some really cool like sentimental moments between Lando and just the Falcon, and the way he comes back out, he fixes everything, they're good to go. And like Leia and him have like a little one-on-one talk about like she actually starts to like care about him, or actually like, starts to welcome him to the rebels for the first time, because with the 17 issues in, they have had a very rocky road up to this point. So this was definitely one of those issues that felt like it really paved a lot of new ground to where we see Lando in Return of the Jedi very much, a general of the Rebel Alliance and all that kind of thing. So somebody has to trust him, and this is kind of the moment of where that trust, I think, really starts to begin. So again, Charles Soule, the writer of this comic series, by the way, he will be at New York Comic Con, so you can believe I will be having a few words with him about his various Star Wars works. He does such a great job of fleshing out these characters, whether it be Lando or Luke Skywalker, as far as the main characters, but also, as we know, he's paving territory for Ben Solo in that miniseries, which also has a connection to that upcoming Star Wars Terrifying Tales, which we'll talk about next week. So the guy's great. But we also had Star Wars Adventures issue number 10. There's a tale about Mace Windu and some separatists and Count Dooku. So we see Count Dooku fighting against Mace Windu, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we've never actually seen that in Clone Wars or anything, right? Like, we've never seen like a duel between Count Dooku and Windu, right?
no,
No,
I
not.
don't think.
So that's-
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't remember anything like that.
So that's the one thing about like, oh, this comic actually did something like that forwards canon a little bit, which is pretty neat. I mean, it does from time to time, but usually, it's an all-age comic, so they have a lot of fun in that comic, which is fine. There's also a backup story involving new characters, involving a Jedi amulet, and they're just keeping away from the bad guys. So a very simplistic story there. But we also have issue number 2 of Star Wars Ghost of Vader's Castle. Again, this is another connection to the Terrifying Tales, which came out today, but we're going to talk about next week, about Vinay, and he's the guy who's the caretaker of Vader's Castle and all this kind of stuff. But there's this like cool story that's being told about Chewbacca and on Kashyyyk, and they take stuff away from Kashyyyk on this day that no one's supposed to smuggle stuff out of Kashyyyk, and there's like this curse that happens, and all of a sudden Chewbacca's like 50 feet tall. It's a tall tale, so like somebody's telling him this story as if it existed, but it really doesn't. Right. But it was just a really cool thing, because at one point you have like a gigantic Chewbacca fighting a gigantic Jackson the rabbit, who as I've said in the past, it's not my most favorite character in the Star Wars galaxy. So to see that happen, I was like, okay, I understand what the artist did, I understand what the writer did, but it's just supposed to be some kind of like spooky story that ties into Halloween. That's why I like this time of year, because IDW has had a pretty good track record of like consistently putting out like an issue every single week relating to like this storyline that's all like spooky related. So pretty good quality comics that came out this week, and of course next week we have a couple issues coming out. But other than that, I think we're gonna just jump right on back to where we left off for our Star Wars Visions discussion / review. Last we left off, we reviewed the duel, we reviewed the twins, and we reviewed the one that takes place right before that. And correct me of the one I am forgetting right now. That is Tatooine Rhapsody. Tatooine Rhapsody.
Oh,
How
yeah.
could I forget the rock opera in Star Wars, right? That was a lot of fun. So we are going to start things off with The Village Bride. This is presented to us from the Japanese anime studios, Kinema Citrus. So I'll throw it over to Ben. What'd you think about this one right off the top?
I thought this one was really good as a excuse me, as a whole from start to finish. I just liked the premise of, the lead character. I forget her name. But
F?
Pardon me?
Which character? Is it the girl that has a lightsaber?
Yeah, the main,
I think her name is literally F.
Is it F? Okay, because I didn't know if I heard that right. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm hearing this right or not. Like, okay, so yeah. So anyways, I thought her character was done really well. I liked how it led up to that moment with her with the lightsaber, like all of that. Like it was definitely one of my favorite episodes. It's not my favorite, but it's in probably my top 5 or so favorite episodes of this whole series, just because, overall I felt like it was a really good story. We got good action in it, and I just thought it played out really well for what it was, for it being an anime. It really felt like anime vibes. Like it's just, it felt like something you would watch on Cartoon Network at midnight or something on, during the anime hours, basically. Like it just felt right.
Yeah, so to give you guys a quick kind of summary of this episode or this short here, it's about, this Jedi F coming down to the planet, and there's a wedding taking place, this bride and this groom. It turns out that there's a deal that is made between the father of the bride to basically make a deal with this, bad guy. But she offers herself up as basically, from what I understand,
Right.
as like a hostage, right? Or like
Yeah.
It's
a
like
ward or
from
something.
how they talk. It's like where they can as like collateral. Like
Yeah.
it's used for like, so they don't pretty much, so the village don't respond back to like what they're trying to do.
Because then they could
If that
hurt
makes
her if
sense.
they try to do
Yeah.
that. So that's really cool, because like right off the bat, like that's something you would see from like Game of Thrones or some medieval fantasy. Like we
Yeah.
don't see a lot of like that kind of dark stuff going on in the Star Wars universe. So what I'll say right off the top, my initial impressions of The Village Bride is, yes, when I think of anime, I think of something like this. Like this is like that really
Yep.
interesting story, but the way it goes, it doesn't quite like just, obviously it's not trying to make A New Hope over again, right? It's not trying to retread Star Wars. What it's doing is it's reversing Star Wars. So Star Wars has been always built up on the spiritual aspect, which is the Force, and I think a lot of George Lucas's inspiration is from like Eastern spirituality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then actually reversing it and talking about this aspect of nature in so much depth, and letting the Force kind of pair along with that, with the mountains and with the rivers and everything about all that, was something that really struck me as being very significant to the story, and just the designs, like the way the guy's helmet is. It's like this crazy medieval helmet, and it's just this really exciting moment towards the end when F like intervenes, and you see like that bolt of the blaster just like hovering in the midair, and the blade that she's wielding. It felt very legendary. It felt Star Wars, but it felt like, okay, like this studio really just had their time and their fill to just kind of tell the story that they've always wanted to, that's still kind of rooted in the Star Wars mythos. So I had to give them credit for that.
I thought this episode was actually really good. I didn't think I would like it, honestly. Like I
Mhm.
know I started it, I believe, last Thursday, and I actually had to rewatch. I probably watched the first 10 minutes, and I wasn't quite paying attention, so I went back and watched it Friday morning. And after really paying attention to it, I actually liked this particular episode. I actually wrote it on my phone as one of the episodes I actually did like, just because I love the story and a lot of the premise behind it. You know, this daughter of the so-called chief of the village was going to sacrifice herself so her father can live and her village can be successful. But it was nice though to see. I guess it was a sister who was
Yep.
pissed off at her.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was nice to see that the sister's like, no, this isn't right. We got to step up and like take back our village. You know, take back our power. So that's classic Star Wars. You know, we have that
Hmm.
conflict between siblings, but also you have that sibling who's willing to sacrifice themselves to save their whether it's their family or their village. So again, those tropes and themes are very much common in Star Wars, and that made sense. Love the visuals, love the music. The action was dope. Like honestly, like this is actually one of my favorite episodes. Um, and I feel like this had a lot of it felt very historic in this
Hmm.
particular episode. It just I don't know, it just felt older. And even though I know this took place after the Jedi Purge, and that pretty much they set it up that way, but it just felt like an old story that we've probably seen in other types of media. But I don't know. I just really enjoyed this episode. Action again, fire. I mean, and that Jedi was an F, like was
Hmm.
off the hook. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, and what I will say is for one of the first episodes here, the music hit me the most on
Yeah,
this episode. I think I like the way the singing was, the quietness of like them walking up the mountain and like the water flowing and everything was like very tranquil and just like
yeah,
a really like warm kind of like sensation of like bringing you into the short and just setting you up like as that is one of the storytelling aspects is the music.
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, you go, Ben.
oh no, I was gonna say yeah, like the music in this was excellent, as you both pointed out. You know, it really sets things up. It really has that you know, as you said, Milton, like a historic or older feel. Like to me, you know, this episode, it felt like it was almost prequel era, like kind of like the spiritual Jedi nature of
Right.
things. You know, I definitely got that vibe from it. And then, you know, as we were saying, the music just really, as any Star Wars property, really, the music sets it up perfectly. And, you know, from start to finish, you know, it really plays well with what we see, like in terms of like the action, the just like the actual story, like the music plays well with that. And, you know, it really flows well from start to finish.
Yeah, and you know that's a good point. Like, I felt like this episode out of the ones at this point. So this is episode what 4?
Hmm.
For
At that point of watching the 4 episodes, that one was by far the smoothest episode because again there was a lot of like because didn't they talk about some history of like the Jedi or something at one point? Because I know they were in the forest, F and that other guy when they were eating with the villagers or
Okay.
something. I felt like they were discussing like just some force stuff and some Jedi just like
Yep.
history. It was just cool seeing that because I've always enjoyed that about Star Wars when they go back and talk about what is the history of the Sith or the Jedi or just of the Force in general. So
Yeah. What I have to shout out is their designs in this for the existing
yeah,
Star Wars material. I mean, seeing super battle droids being voiced by Matthew Wood, who does them in the Clone Wars and the movies, was
Yeah.
awesome. You know, that's so fun just seeing the battle droids again.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah.
Like
yeah,
Look, battle droids. You know, some people have issues with them. Some people have issues with well the Roger of them. But like, I mean, listen, I thought they played well in this episode. Like, I didn't feel like they were useless.
yes, and the fact that you know it's cool seeing these different Japanese creators. Yeah, sure, like most of these episodes have some kind of version of a stormtrooper, but like the people that did this episode were like, hey, let's give some feedback to the prequels. Let's give some love to the prequels here. Not only
Well,
did they give love,
and
yeah,
you know you're right because look, they explained it well too. They said, well, the separatists left their droids here, and the bandits reprogrammed them to be their little miniature army. That makes sense.
yeah,
Like I thought they did a really good job at saying, well, why would these droids be here? They aren't wasted. These bad bandits used them to create an army to keep this town hostage.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I
they
mean,
weren't just huge fans of that. They had the Old Republic had some legend stuff in here. We had the freaking model of the Ebon Hawk was what the bandits came off of.
Was that what that was? Because I
Yeah.
honestly I thought that was like a different version of the Falcon.
Yeah, so it's literally the same ship except not painted
Okay.
exactly the same as the Ebon
Gotcha.
Hawk. And then F gets into her fighter, and it's actually a Z95 Headhunter, which first appeared, I think, in the Thrawn trilogy, and later got revealed in the Clone Wars. And that's always been a ship I want to see more of because it's like the precursor to the X-wing. It doesn't have the X foils or whatever, but it's still freaking cool. So like, I gotta give the creators of this just really cool, like good props for setting those things into motion and be like, yeah, we have our own like very unique Star Wars story, but we're gonna show some love to the fans of the prequels, to the fans of KOTOR, to the fans of the Throne trilogy, stuff like that. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean they didn't overdo it though, as we said about like the twins episode referencing like, I have a bad feeling about this or thing like they didn't say, hey guys, so these battle droids are from blah, like we didn't just get a dialogue dumper. This is the Z95 Headhunter from blah blah from the old Republic era. We didn't get a little like Jurassic Park narration of like all
Right.
the Easter eggs basically. So that was nice how they did that. And to me, one thing I thought, I actually I literally remember I said to myself, I was like, man, I'm surprised, these battle droids actually seem like menacing or like a potential threat to the people. Like they actually seemed like a potential threat versus like, we get kind of some goofy stuff in the actual live action sense. So I felt like there were more of a threat in this than we've actually seen potentially on screen in live action.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Just I don't even know if it's just the way they're animated to be more imposing, but I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do final thoughts on The Village Bride. I'll kick this off. It's hard to grade these, honestly. It's like we're not going to grade the whole thing all together because that's just impossible with all these different creators, but we're going to try to keep a running tab of per episode basis, I guess. I think that's a more fair way to grade Vision. So, but this one, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I feel like this one has a lot more depth to it because it deals with the spirituality. We have really just the art design. We didn't really talk about that a whole lot, but just like the color palette, the brightness, the way that this is more of a rural setting. So you're seeing those colors, you're seeing nature more in this episode than any other episode, which is a huge aspect when it comes to like the Force and stuff. And just having this mysterious character named F and having, there's not a whole lot of action, I would say, in this until the very end. But the action is very meaningful and it serves a purpose and it's not just there for the heck of it. So yeah, this one was definitely, I would say it's definitely the top, maybe 3 or 4 for me. So I'll throw it over to Milton.
I say for this episode, I would give it 9 out of 10. Again, I like I mentioned before, I didn't think I would like it just because how the initial look, how I wasn't paying attention the first time watching it, but as I went back to actually pay attention, really loved the episode, loved the storytelling in it. Again, like you said, the animation was legit, music was awesome, action was good. It just flowed well. Like I didn't get bored with the episode. Like I didn't feel lost, and I was like, okay, I can really get into this. So I go 9 out of 10.
All right, there you go. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go along with Milton's score. I'm going to say it's a 9 out of 10 because I think the episode flowed really good as a whole. As I said earlier, the music I felt was almost perfect for the entire thing just throughout because it really hit the scenes perfectly. However the music was being played at the time, the scenes were matching up like perfectly with that. They had a really good well balance of, new content, obviously, but also Star Wars Easter eggs. Like, sure, we may have criticized like some of the Easter eggy things last week from like the whole I have a bad feeling and all this stuff. Because as Star Wars fans, we want Easter eggs and callbacks, but we don't want it to be like, hey guys, look, this is an Easter egg, ha ha ha. So, it's nice that they put in things like the battle droids, like the Z95, those sorts of things. But they included them naturally into the story. So I really, big applause to that. I really liked how they went to, as you said earlier, Chris, that was another thought I had too. I was like, man, this is kind of like Game of Thrones, like the beginning of the very first episode when Danny is like getting sold off to to Aquaman. So I just really I thought they did really good on it as a whole, actually going there, because we haven't seen anything like, sure, we've seen like dark things, obviously, like Revenge of the Sith, like Anakin, those type of things, or Rogue One Vader, but we've never seen anything dark in terms of like morally dark, of like, oh hey, you need to like sell me your like daughter,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatnot. So like that sort of thing is cool that they actually went there for Star Wars. And that's actually a trope I would like to see in live action sense. Like that would be something. I mean, I don't think we'll ever get that in live action, because that's potentially too much, I feel like, because Star Wars likes to like cater to all viewing audiences. So or they'd have to do it they'd have to really be careful how they would do it in live action. But I would love to see that type of a trope in live action from Star Wars, like take inspiration from this. So but yeah, I mean, and then of course F was amazing. So overall, as I said, this is a 9 out of 10 for me, and one of my favorite ones, I would say.
So there you go. That was our thoughts on Village Bride, and we're going to move right on into The Ninth Jedi for our 5th episode discussion. So this one is really a peek into the future of what the Star Wars universe could be. We have a sabersmith, we have a bunch of masterless Jedi that are given lightsabers, and they depend on what their allegiance is, whether they are Sith or Jedi. Their fates are revealed, and we have this huge plot twist, and it is an awesome episode. It's definitely one of the longest episodes. In fact, they have this filmmaker extras on Disney Plus, which I recommend everybody to watch after you watch all the episodes. And they do say that originally this was supposed to be two separate episodes. One of them was supposed to be on Kara, the daughter of the Saber Forge, or Sabersmith, sorry. And then you had another story that was based on, what was his name, like Juro or something like that.
Yeah, it's like Juro, I believe.
Yeah. So Lucasfilm was like, hey, why don't you guys just like somehow find a way to like put both these together, and you guys can do like a longer episode. And you're like, okay, sure. So I think it paid off. I think this story seems like it's the most ambitious as far as like it feels almost like the most like Star Wars without like hitting you over the head with a bunch of Easter eggs. But it feels like this could be the next step of like the Star Wars evolution. What I like about Star Wars Visions, we'll talk about it later on, is just the way that each one of these shorts feels like it's something new. Like it's bringing some kind of new element to Star Wars. We can get bogged down with some of the repeated same tropes that we know about that happen in a lot of the animated series. But when it comes to Vision, especially with the Ninth Jedi, we're seeing things where it's like blowing our minds with our expectations of what's happening in a story. Being on the edge of your seat, that kind of roller coaster sensation of, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, and just the awesome animation that's in store here from her, running around on the ice lake, to just like all these Jedi fighting, and just looking at the exposition or just the overall world building in 22 minutes, like the amount of world building that they do in this damn episode, whether it be that first look of like these trebuchet things, like taking stuff out of space for like kyber crystals, to like a freaking droid that's sipping tea is on break and doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Like they told so much story in this 22-minute episode, and it's just incredible to me. And this is the one episode that left me wanting more. Like I feel like this episode left off where the journey really begins, and this is one of those episodes where like Disney Plus could easily like just use this as the pilot and then greenlight like an entire series just based on the Ninth Jedi. And I didn't give credit where credit is due. The production company is Production IG, who I believed worked on Ghost in the Shell. So these guys are a renowned studio for Japanese anime. Give these guys, the keys to the kingdom to just make their own story with these 4 Jedi that we get left with, because it is some really compelling Star Wars, which I really haven't had like kind of this sensation or feeling for any animation in a while. So yeah, what do you guys have to say about this one?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. So I know you guys watched this episode before I did, and you both said, Milton, when you get to the Ninth Jedi, you're gonna love it. And I remember my reaction to you guys that Friday morning. I'm not going to say every word I said, but I pretty much said it was boss. Like, it was a dope episode. I loved it. This is probably my favorite one thus far at that time. Man, first of all, the story overall, I need this to be in like a mini series.
Yep.
Like that's how good this episode was because
Yep.
again, it told a lot. It had the great lore behind the lightsabers, and for people who haven't seen this yet, the lightsabers that they make when you hold them, you can tell who's like a good person or a bad person. Do you guys remember that? How like whenever what's the girl's name?
Kara.
She
Kara.
picks up the saber and it's kind of like that grayish,
Yeah.
like can't have a color. So okay, like what's her deal? But he explained like you'll untap your potential in the Force eventually, which I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then you get the twist of the other Jedi who answered the call are actually Sith here to hunt down Juro, which was like, oh, when you see the lightsabers turn red, you're like, whoa, you know, I was like, okay, like something's about to go down. Again, how the art of making lightsabers was like banned, you know, was kind of cool. So I'm like, okay, why is that? I want to know what happened with that. Just the overall world building, the overall storytelling, how it ended. It on a cliffhanger. They're gonna go save old girl's dad. So it was like, I want to see more of that. Again, I would take a part 2 right now if I could, you know. And then how they named that girl the Ninth Jedi, which was dope. I'm like, okay, that's a great way to encompass what this episode really means. And you know, even who's the guy that actually was a Jedi, the kid, the other boy, do you remember?
Is his name Ethan?
Yeah.
Is it
Yep.
Ethan?
Ethan.
Yeah,
Ethan. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. But it was cool though how he got to see some of his story and how he's like, hey, I failed you. He's like, no, like you showed the courage of a Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, you stepped up. You didn't leave. Like you kept true to who you are. And it's like that is so Star Wars. And I was like, all right, I want to see more of this. I need to see where they're going to take this. So Lucasfilm, Disney, if you're watching and listening, please give me a part 2, 3, and 4 for the Ninth Jedi because it was fire.
Yeah, we weren't kidding when we said you gotta watch this thing, man. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I have so much to say about this episode just because I think, in my opinion, I think it is the quintessential Star Wars storytelling, start to finish. I thought it was excellent. It's by far and away my most favorite episode. It's like this. It's like this one, then skip a spot, then start. So, like, I think this one, like, has the most potential for sure, as you both said, to be a new series. And I honestly feel like our predictions heading into this show as a whole, how we were talking about maybe they're going to look at ratings and, you know, social buzz of whichever episode's getting talked about. And the one I saw the most talked about trending all the time on Twitter was the Ninth Jedi. Like, you know, that was the one that was trending, like, with the hashtag, people talking about it, people going crazy over the whole twist with the lightsabers. Like, I didn't even see that coming. Like, you know, that didn't even register to me. You know, that was just a little fact they slipped in there at the beginning of the episode. You know, and, you know, you just had that in your subconscious mind, like, oh, cool. You know, like that's, you know, that's the direction we're going. And then they turn the lightsabers on and they're red. And it's like, whoa, like, I did not see that coming at all. Like, that was a huge twist to me. So I thought that was great. Just the whole fact that the girl is the Ninth Kara is, like, I thought that was really cool. And again, you know, as you said, to start your point, Chris, like, there's so much world building done in this 22 minutes. And now I'm just like, man, I wish we could have 2 22-minute episodes of this story, because it was just done so well. And I didn't realize it was the Ghost in the Shell creators. And, you know, that makes a lot of sense because that's one of the most popular properties there are. I mean, heck, they did a live action Ghost in the Shell movie. So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I feel like Scarlett Johansson might have been.
I think she was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you know, like, that's a popular property. So, like, these people, this studio doing this, I feel like they could definitely do a 10-episode series on the Ninth Jedi, and it would play over really well with the fans because, you know, you're opening up new characters. Like, these are, of course, new characters. There's really no, I don't even really think there's any references. Like, there's no Easter eggy type things, or not too many, like, not on the nose. And to me, that's totally fine because this harkens back to like A New Hope, like it's totally new. Like, you know, the
Yeah.
first time we all watched New Hope, it was totally new.
Mhm.
Like this is totally new, but it captures like the whole spirituality of like the Force and lightsabers and like the mythology of it. So, and it's building its own mythology of the whole lightsaber, you know, turning whatever color of the side of the Force you're on. So I thought that was excellent putting that in there, and it's great how that turned out to be like a key major part of the episode. And again, I just think by far and away it was the best episode for those reasons that, you know, to me, this was like quote unquote like Star Wars.
Absolutely. I agree totally. Listen, I know I took two things from this. One, the storytelling, well, a couple things, but one would be storytelling. Overall, it was crisp. It wasn't wasteful, and I thought every point they made with the Force or whatever point about the lightsabers made so much sense, and it added more to it than what we knew about. Because we had no idea that you hold a lightsaber, it will reveal who you are in the Force. Like we never saw that before. We just assumed it was kyber crystals, you know. So it was cool to see that. I took away these two things actually. One, you know, we talk about, you know, some people had issues with the sequel trilogy and like them pushing like a female character and saying that, oh, people don't like female leads or whatever in Star Wars, whatever. No, this proves right here we love female leads if you write them correctly. This is a little girl who was a messenger who was strong in the Force, who we now say, oh my God, I want to see more of her story. That's amazing. Again, that goes to a lot of writing for the character, the mythology, the animation, overall the narrative and how it made sense. So I think that was great. Go ahead, Ben.
100%. Like, you know, her character, like I was watching this episode just like even with F in the last episode, like I watch these episodes as like, oh, these are great new characters. Like I don't look at characters and think, oh, this is a female, oh, this is a male. Right. Like I look at them as, are these good characters? And like Kara, really good character.
Yes.
F, really good character. A lot of these characters are really good, strong characters. And the funny thing is, like I just look at this show, this whole series as a whole, and I just think to myself, like, or even take this episode since we're talking about this one specifically. If you, like, sure, maybe these guys want to have done the sequel trilogy, but like, if you would have had these people consult on the sequel trilogy, just like the story, to me, just like the story, be like, hey, this is like kind of the direction of like the mythology of Star Wars. You know, considering your company doesn't really know how to look into its own mythology. So like to me, that's another big point I'm going to get to when we talk about the entire series. Is I feel like what Visions has done better than so much more. You know, setting like the Mandalorian aside, because the Mandalorian's done an amazing job and, you know, things like that. But from what we've seen in a live action theatrical sense from Disney, I feel like they've misstepped on is their, you know, it's like you're missing the Big Mac. You're missing the number one order here. Like this show though, Visions, I like it so much because you're not influenced by all the American BS. This is to me, I mean, that's seriously like not even just joking. Like
you're not wrong.
To me, it's not influenced by the American BS. Like to me, I think we're connecting so much with this show because they're actually sticking to what Star Wars is meant to be. Like, you know, they viewed whatever it may be, episodes 1 through 9. Most likely, a lot of the influences were 1 through 6. Like they viewed what George Lucas viewed Star Wars as, and they're like, let's make something like that, but adapt it. And, you know, they did such a good job of it. And to me, like coming out of this series, it's like, oh, so to me, I just laugh almost because it's like, so the world may still have a view of Star Wars, you know, of what the prequel and original trilogy era has. And then, you know, a lot of the American politics that we see, you know, on social media here in the US, it's so much like infighting between sequels versus original trilogy versus this, that, and the other thing. And like this show shows, you know, they're just sticking to a good story, to a good mythology of the Force, of Star Wars. And they're sticking to what, like, sure, of course, storytellers can tell different things, but they're sticking to the foundations of what George Lucas laid when he built this franchise. And I just like applaud them for that. And like this episode, The Ninth Jedi specifically, hit the home run on it. Like they nailed what Star Wars was meant to be, in my opinion.
Nothing else to add to that. I think that was well said, bro. You're not wrong. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Go ahead, Chris.
This episode, we could literally spend an hour talking about this episode.
Yeah.
If we wanted to dive into the fact, like the thing that made me kind of sit up straight was the fact of the Masterless Jedi, and you have these Jedi that arrive, and it's like they don't even have lightsabers in this universe. Like those haven't existed. You had these Inquisitors and these bounty hunters just going around everywhere, just taking people out mercilessly. You see something like the Sabersmith, which is a brand new concept in Star Wars, like literally like an old school, like medieval, like blacksmith working with kyber crystals that are getting pulled from outer space down to the surface of the planet to get mined. Like that is just so freaking cool. And it's a different kind of spin on Star Wars, but still has that Star Wars DNA in it. And the action. Yeah.
I was just going to say one quick thing to dive in on the Sabersmith point. The thing I really liked about that is like, they did it so well. See, that's another thing. We may like complain about how they changed certain things for like the sequels and stuff, but look, they changed the fundamental way of how lightsabers were built in this Star Wars universe, in this show. And we didn't even blink twice about it because they did it so well. And like, I loved, I think that was the connection a lot of people made with the Sabersmith, is like, we all have that connection of like, our old history classes learning about medieval times and like, the whole literally sabersmiths or ironsmiths or whatever they're called, like, seeing those type of people over the years. So like, that's one of the big parts I think that was so cool and so well done, is they totally changed the concept of how lightsabers are created, and it works perfectly.
Worked. Yep. I'm not complaining. Like,
yep.
I want one. I mean, it just, again, I hope people, when they listen to this particular part of the podcast, hope they're not thinking that we are being negative. This is very much a positive thing we're talking about. They are getting it right with Star Wars. And here's the thing. They're bringing in a lot of fresh new ideas, which we all want. That's what's beautiful about what's being, especially with this episode. A lot of new things with the mythology, a lot of old things that we come to love, but also too their world building, their character building. They're just expanding our mind when it comes to what George's original vision was with Star Wars.
Well, Milton, just think about this, guys, or both of you, really. Just imagine if this episode would have been live action and we get to the part where they ignite their red lightsabers, like, that would have been wild.
Fire.
Oh, man. So let's just give it some scores, because we got like 5 more episodes to talk about here. So
I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I think it was perfect. And if they want to hear my thoughts, we rewind the podcast about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Milton.
Well, you already saw my hand, so it's 10 out of 10. Let's go. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to give it a 9.5. For me to give a 10 out of 10 on everything, I find like the littlest things a critique. And I'm sitting here trying to find something that I didn't quite enjoy about this, but right now I'll say I'm going to give it a 9.5. It's just fantastic. Again, I think we've said enough of our initial thoughts to give you guys an idea of why we think it scores so high, but this is probably my favorite. I'll second Ben, and I'm very curious to hear Milton's thoughts on future shorts, because I think he said something about at the time this was his favorite, so it's like, okay, one he likes more. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on, and the next one we have to discuss is TOB1. This is from Science Saru Studios. So this one is basically what would happen if we had a Pinocchio story in Star Wars. I mean, it's a little bit deeper than that, but essentially we have a droid that imagines himself as a Jedi Knight, and by the end of this, he really does become a Jedi Knight in his own right when he defends his fallen master and basically starts saving the galaxy with the Force. So we're going to jump into Milton's thoughts on this one first.
I was actually very surprised by this episode, because when I started it, I was like, where are they going with this? Is why some robot? What are they going to do with him? Like, honestly, it was like, oh, this is like a Mega Man thing. I'm like, it looks like a Mega Man like character.
Yep.
But then I was like, oh, it's a kid. I don't. It kind of made me feel like I was a kid again. You know, like I kind of got. Well, how many? I know for a fact when I was a kid, I probably daydreamed about wanting to be a Jedi. You know, wanting to have a saber and wanting to change the world and make an impact. And it was a nice story about a kid with that Pinocchio feel, but wanting to be a real boy, but also making that connection with his surrogate father. And I was like, that's always going to touch my heart. I mean, look, I think I'm pretty tough, but I have a sensitive side. And this episode, I will say, in my opinion, probably had the most heart. Just because you saw the guy. Spoiler alert: he's actually a Jedi, the professor. And you don't see him get cut down, but you can feel it. And then when the kid sees his masters on the ground dead, you know, he mourns for him, but he's like, hey, I'm going to continue your legacy. I'm going to continue what you started by bringing life to this planet, which he did. And then that beacon went off and the Inquisitor came back and he fought him. That kid had so much heart. Like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now. I'm like, yeah, dude, I can't hate this episode. It showed the courage that little robot had, the dream that he had to be in a Jedi, and he became one. It was cool how they used the technology of like how he simulated like the Force, but with his robot tech and that little droid he had with him. Like I honestly, this is actually a really good episode. I had a lot of heart. I really really enjoyed it as when I watched it, and I was like, okay, it surprised me. And again, it'd be cool to see more of that kid's story. What's it, TOB1 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to see B1's story. I want to see where he goes at this point. So it's got me wanting more.
Yeah, so for TOB1, again, up there with Lop and Ocho as one of the ones I was not looking forward to, just from the animation style. I mean, not even knowing anything about the story, but just like, this droid looks like something ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
it's trying to be Mega Man, like you said. I'm like, I don't really know about this. And like, yeah, as the story progressed, you get more of this. And you're right. I think this does have the most heart out of any of the other stories. I mean, it was kind of gut wrenching when like the guy puts him in the wall and hides him.
Yes.
And he comes out, there's just a pile of stones, like, oh man, he's actually gone. Like, he's actually dead. And then the Inquisitor, I love seeing the Inquisitor. I think that was really cool. Like, you seeing this menace. I would have liked to know more about the Inquisitor and stuff, because like you see him on the bridge of the Star Destroyer with the Stormtroopers, like yada yada yada, Jedi, whatever. And you see him and he gets destroyed by the TOB1. But it was cool because this one also, like The Village Bride, deals with nature, deals with the Force as having a symbiotic relationship with every living organism. So they're on almost a planet that very much could have been Tatooine for all we know. And just the cool thing about like his mission now is to go and sow the seeds of the Force around to desolate, barren planets, which is huge. So there's a lot of, ramifications for what this boy Jedi droid is going to be. But it's a great story of hope, and a story that you can be whatever you want to be. You don't have to ever fit a mold. Like if
Right.
you grow up a certain way, you can make your own path, right? So I think it's a really good inspirational story. One of probably the most inspirational story out of all of these. And for that, I really have to give it a lot of credit as well. I'm going to throw it over to Ben.
Yeah, well, for me, I definitely did not feel the way you guys felt at first. Just because, it's the whole like the Bad Batch syndrome of like we get this amazing episode and then we go to this.
Yeah.
So like me, I actually had to watch this one twice because I watched it. I watched, and of all things, I definitely didn't watch this properly. I would say just because I actually watched the first 4 episodes of the show, then took like an hour-long break, and then I continued. So I started out with the Ninth Jedi and then right into this one. So it was like hitting a brick wall. I was like, whoa, what is this? Like this is definitely not as good as the last episode. So I actually ended up watching this episode specifically like the day after, just because I was like, just to like let it settle or whatever. And I thought it turned out to be a pretty fine, like charming story. Like you said, it's like a Pinocchio type story. The like when he hit him in the wall and that sort of stuff, and then he was gone, that almost like gave me vibes of like World War II, like Jews hiding and like that sort of thing, you
I was
know?
about to say
So,
like Anne Frank.
yep, Anne Frank. That's literally what I thought of when I watched it the second time when I was actually like into it. I was thinking along those lines. I was like, man, that's kind of like that. Um, but I thought it ended up being a pretty good episode overall, or a solid-ish episode, solid to good episode overall, just because, of like the Pinocchio story. It's classic. We can connect with it. It's not, again, they didn't. It's like the whole acronym, like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like, don't overthink it. Make a good story, and you'll be good. And that's what they did. And I thought it ended up being pretty good for that reason specifically.
Yeah, really. I like the different callbacks to certain things. Like you have the T-65 speeder or whatever it is, Skyhopper, which is really
Skyhopper.
neat. And the fact that he went in there and like he accidentally like alerted the Jedi Inquisitors or the Inquisitors, whatever, was like neat kind of focus. But seeing all the droids, seeing like him marching down the street reminded me of like Snow White or something with the little dwarves, like him just like marching around. The animation's really neat as far as like the kind of slower pace. It looked like something from like maybe like 1950s. I really enjoyed the duel with the actual the Inquisitor, because at one point it really was like Mega Man, because like he gets
Yeah.
like an armored suit or something, like his arm gets chopped off, and it's just like the droid like goes on his back and he gets like super powered and then he just goes at it. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like a little bit of like Iron Man type, like upgrade a little bit, and like I said, that Mega Man feel for it. I mean, like, look, overall, I like the episode. I guess I'll score it real quick, but if I had to get a score, it'd be probably a 8.5 out of 10. Just first for me, the animation was good. I just didn't like the style of it. And like I said, it will grow on me as I probably watch this episode again. But 8.5 out of 10 overall, it just had the most heart, and I think I probably was like, I kind of feel for that little guy, but he persevered.
Mm-hmm. I'll throw it over to Ben for final thoughts on COB1.
Yeah, at first I remember when I first watched it, I was like, man, this is like a 5 out of 10 for me, just because coming off the Ninth Jedi. But after watching it a second time and like enjoying it for what it was more and stuff, I would have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like, I thought it was pretty good overall. Solid. The animation, I didn't like it at all. I can definitely say that. I didn't like the style of it. I just thought it didn't work for me. And I can definitely say though, like, unlike the Night Jedi or like the Village Bride, all that type of stuff, all of some of those other prior episodes, like this, sometimes I look at shows as well, like, would I want to see this in live action? And this is something I don't want to see this in live action. I don't want to see like a droid wanting to be a Jedi, like that type of thing. So like for me, it was okay. Like I said, 7.5 out of 10, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8. I think it still adds a lot to some new things in Star Wars, as like age old kind of themes, but like turning them on their head a little bit. Having a droid trying to be a Jedi is something really neat, and I think that's something original, at least from their perspective. Seeing nature involved again, just the overall, tying into like the Inquisitor stuff was really cool. So yeah, I will give TOB1 an 8 out of 10, and we're moving on. We got 3 left to talk about. We have another one from Trigger Studios. Remember, they also did the Twins, and this is The Elder. And this could be like the farthest from you would think the studio would ever make. If you're comparing this to the Twins, this is a lot more slower, and it's a lot more methodical. And what it is it's really dealing with like, if it reminded me a lot of either something in the High Republic or something in, predates the prequels, because it's really just that age-old relationship of the master and the apprentice. Seeing these two guys going through the galaxy, responding to a call. This is like a day in the life of a Jedi, These guys responding to this call for help, finding out it's an elder, and the fact that the only reason he was able to beat this guy is because he used time against him, right? The guy got older. He got so old that he kind of messed up. So I love just that kind of samurai kind of feel of like, I can fight here all day, or I can be wise and I can take the guy out in a couple swipes depending on their weakness or something like that. So, initial thoughts, Ben.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Just for the whole fact of the day in the life of the Jedi type of feel to it, because that's something we never really see in any type of Star Wars, really. Because every on-screen Jedi appearance, whether it be Clone Wars or Rebels or live action, it's always like galactic implications on the line, or you know it's never it's never the day in life. You never get the behind the scenes because it's always cutting. Like if it's the movie, you're gonna go from Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in episode one, like going down to Naboo, and then it's cut, action, 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 action. There's time that passes between, like, from the time they leave Naboo to get to Tatooine and back. Like, I'm sure there's days or potentially weeks. Like, what are they doing in that time frame, leading to when they get back to the planet? Like, things like that. We don't see the basic, like, the day in the life of, like, what is going on for Jedi. So, like, I thought that was really cool. And then, as I mentioned last week, the literally the Elder, I honestly thought it was Harrison Ford at first. I really did. Like, the voice acting of the guy, he sounds just like Harrison Ford, in my opinion. And I literally had to pause it, and I looked up the cast, and I was like, no, it's not Harrison, but it sounds just like him.
That's David Harbour. That's the guy that plays Stranger Things. He plays Harper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He's also the who's the Russian Captain America.
Oh,
yeah.
that guy in Black Widow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I mean, I thought it was really good overall. I just thought it felt Star Wars to me. Like, it was a nice behind the scenes look, a day in the life, like boots on the ground type deal, versus, like, of course, like the biggest galactic implications. And that's interesting too, Chris, that you mentioned the same studio did this one as the twins. Like, it felt like that again, just like the people who did the Ninth Jedi, like that shows your range of skill set, how you can go from one extreme to definitely the other extreme. Like, props to them.
Heck yeah. And I mean, I like the whole concept of, the overeager apprentice, right? We've seen that with Anakin in the prequels, him going after Count Dooku, and Obi-Wan's like, wait, he's like, I'm gonna take him now, so it's like the same kind of concept. Like, even him, like, just like discussing with his master, discussing different concepts. Like, the guy's kind of a jerk that needs to be put in his place a little bit. And see that, like, he gets, like, struck down. I thought he was dead for sure. I was like, oh wow, they actually killed this guy off, but he got back up later. But it was like, okay, it felt like there were some stakes in this one, right? Like, this guy going down, like, oh, is he actually dead? Like, oh man, maybe this master might get taken out too. So it was definitely one of the stories where I was like, oh, this elder actually might come out as a victor. This might be like a different kind of darker Star Wars ending.
Yeah, to me, like, that elder was playing games. Like, I think it was funny how he was playing games originally, especially with the apprentice. Like, he knew he had him beat. And it was cool to see that he was bragging to the master about, oh, if I was younger, I probably would have wrecked you, pretty much. And it was like, oh, like, you really just don't care. You just want to have it. Like, he kind of reminded me of like a Saiyan that just loves to fight, like from Dragon Ball Z. Like, Saiyans love to fight in that particular series. And this old Elder Jedi was like, or Sith. He's like, I just want to see if I'm still strong. Like, I think to him it was just a game. That's the feeling that I got. I kind of felt that the Elder was like a creepy uncle too, that like probably shouldn't be playing around anymore. Just like relax, like let the little kids play. But he just wanted to continue to have fun. Like, I have to use that weird analogy, I know, but overall though, I liked this episode. It wasn't my favorite one. Like, it definitely wasn't bad, obviously, but it just was very methodical. It was very much like taking its time, which is a good thing. But honestly, like, I did kind of feel at one point, I was like, okay, where are they taking this story? What's the overall point? And then at the end, you get to see, like, okay, what is it? Dan's the Sith, or Dan's the apprentice or something.
Yeah.
He's like, and his master's like, hey, listen, the point of being a Jedi means like being kind-hearted and not end up like this old guy, and not letting time like corrupt you or whatever it is. So again, I think to me, I liked it. I just was getting kind of like not bored with it, but more like, hey, where are they taking this? What's the purpose? Is it just some old guy that wants to fight? But then it's like, okay, there is a premise to it. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was, it was, it was a solid episode. Like, I mean, animation was good. Solid episode. Honestly, I think this is a one and done. There's no need to try to even like expand upon the story.
Yeah, I mean, you could get like several, other episodes revolving around hey, just like this, going to a planet, fighting somebody, going to a planet, solve a problem. I can
Yeah.
see it being serialized in that manner, but yeah, nothing like the Ninth Jedi or the next one that we'll talk about coming up. But for this one, I think you brought a great point, Bill. I gotta agree with you. Like there was certain like in the middle area, and I'm saying middle area out of what like a 15-minute story. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, I did start to drift because there's a lot of walking at certain points. I was like, oh, what is
Yeah.
this? Lord of the Rings. What's going on here? Like let's get going here. Talking to the villagers and stuff. So it is doing a little bit of world building, but I feel like it is that 7.5 out of 10. Just because I think
Right.
the pacing could have been sped up just a little bit. They could have been more economical with the time compared to some of the other shorts that we've seen thus far. So I'll throw it over to Ben for final thoughts on The Elder.
Yeah, I mean, I have to completely agree with you guys. Like, I think for this episode only being like 15 minutes, there were parts where it was like, man, this feels like this is taking a long time here.
Yup.
Like what's like? Because I remember about honestly, like honest to God, I about halfway through the episode, I paused it for a second just to see the runtime because I was like please don't let this be like a 30-minute episode or something, because it just felt like it was dragging. But like the overall like message of the episode was good. Like the whole just behind the scenes of the Jedi thing, basically. As you said, we don't need to see more of this. It was fine for what it was. It dragged again. As you said, a lot of walking. Yeah, it just falls in that 7 out of 10 range for me.
And over to you, Milton.
Yeah. You won't get an argument out of me. It's probably 7.5 out of 10. Again, nothing special. Wasn't bad. It just wasn't special.
Yep. So moving on to the penultimate or the second to last in this series. And we have, let me go over that again as I took a swig of water. The second to last one here, we have Lop and Ocho. This one comes to us from Geno Studios. And this is really about what happens when the Empire comes to a planet and disturbs the peace and disturbs the way the life on the planet works. We have this family that is, split in half, whereas one of the daughters wants to work for the Empire, and the other daughter, who is not actual biological daughter, but actually, I believe, a Lepi, same species as Jackson, a bunny type creature, is brought into the family as they were in need and they were taken in. And this it's all about inheritance as well. Living up not just for your bloodline but for what's right. So this really was one of the bright spots for the series. And I was making plenty of jokes in the upcoming lead up to the show of like, oh, Lop and Ocho, it's got a bunny creature, this thing's gonna be a joke, I'm gonna hate this damn thing, I can already tell you guys. But I will be honest, this really won me over. You can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, do I like the creature design? Not at all. I still not fine with it. But when it comes to the storytelling, I feel like this one was definitely one of the best ones out of the bunch, because dealing with just so many different concepts, whether, like I said, whether it be the sisters, whether it being like family, found family, escaping from oppression, like natural environments versus, something that's going to cause smog and disaster. So there's just so much going on here. What do you think about this one, Milton?
This is in my top 4 of episodes. Because I would have to say it was the Ninth Jedi, the Duel, Twins, and then this one. The reason why I say that, because this one felt personal to me. As far as people that I don't know, I'm actually adopted when I was 10 or 11. So seeing was a Lope. Is that who the bunny creature is?
Lop and Ocho? Yeah.
Yeah. Ocho. Is Ocho the daughter or is the bunny creature?
I think the daughter is Ocho.
Yeah, daughter's Ocho, so Lope's the bunny. So like seeing that she was brought in by this family, they accepted her, and the relationship between those sisters. Like you can tell, like, and obviously we don't see how the relationship was. It just cuts to 7 years later. And I actually watched this one this evening, so it's very fresh to me. Um, Seeing that 7 year period, you knew they built a strong relationship. You could tell, because like even how the Lope character was talking to her sister in the racer when they're heading to see that Empire guy. Like you can tell, like she's very comfortable enough to say, "Hey, like I love you guys. I love Dad. I love the planet. Like we can't do this. Like we got to be loyal and keep this together." And the sister, Ocho's like, "Nah, we got to do what's best for like the villagers and whatever." I felt that was very personal, just because I know what it's like coming into a new family, trying to find your place. And what really hit me was whenever at the end, whenever Lope goes to the father and plead like, I want to continue the legacy. I want to continue blah 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 blah. And he's like, you know what? I'm sorry if I treated you any different than Ocho. If I favored her, I apologize. But I'm gonna pass along our family heirloom to you. That really hit me, because I'm like, it's not about blood. It's about connection. It's about relationships. It's about being part of a family no matter what you look like. And then we got more mythology of like the Sith or of the Jedi, and this. It was just cool. It was a cool story, man. I connected to it. That's why to me it felt personal, because I connected to this story. Like you, Chris, I probably was like, a bunny talking. Like, will I even like this? But then for Pete's sake, we love a talking raccoon and Marvel. So, like, yeah, I really enjoyed this. The storytelling was dope. The duel was tight between the sisters, and to come to find out that Lope's force sensitive, it's like I didn't see that coming. And how like it ended, I was like, all right, I want to see more of this story. Is she gonna put her family back together? We all have family here, so it's kind of we kind of feel like, oh, if someone was corrupt or going down the wrong path in our family, we want to make sure we bring them back to the light. So I was like, okay, this has a lot of heart too. Like I really enjoyed this episode.
That's so neat. Just kind of before Ben gives his thoughts here about, you connecting Milton personally because it's going to be based on something you've gone through, and
Yeah.
seeing how Star Wars, put in the hands of other creators. That's why it's good to have a diverse group of people, creatives around the world working on this, because you get different perspectives that you wouldn't get otherwise. So it's cool to see that, hey, you're resonating with this story, especially because you have that personal history. So that's a great thing about Star Wars storytelling is, they're bringing it around. Everybody has some kind of thing in Star Wars, some medium, some story that they can always say, like, this resonated with me specifically for that reason. That's awesome. But I'm going to throw it over to Ben.
Oh yeah, this was one of my favorite episodes as well. It's either fourth or fifth for me. It's in my top five. Just because of that whole aspect in general. Like, sure, that whole episode was really good as a whole, like what we saw, but I like the use of the different concepts, as you mentioned, the different family concepts, the different, basically having like the step sibling concepts, like those type of things, everyone can relate to them, or like even the adopted concepts, like those things people can relate to. And, like even for me, like I have step siblings and stuff. So like, I can relate to that type of stuff. So like that's pretty cool. But I think for this episode, what it really did well was just like execute that, really drove the point home. Like it doesn't matter if you're like directly in the bloodline. And to me as well, like I think this, like I look at it and it's like, yeah, like, for some of the like the critiques of like the sequels of like how it ended with Rey being a Skywalker, like this is like mirroring that, like Rey's joining like Luke and Leia's family, like even though she's not directly part of the bloodline. Like I think that's good. And like, like some people who, didn't like enjoy that, like with her being a Skywalker, because I know there were a lot of people that are like, oh no, that's dumb. Why would she be a Skywalker? But to me, like I think this episode hammers that home. As you pointed out, Milton, like, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Like you can join a family. And like, I think this, this episode really hammered that concept home. And that's definitely a concept that we've had in Star Wars, basically since the beginning, since A New Hope, because look, like Han, Leia, Luke, Chewie, the droids, like they're all part of the family basically, or they're like their own adopted family. I mean, look, like R2 has like a personality throughout the whole series, and he never speaks. Like he just makes beep noises. Like so, those type of things. They resonate. They've resonated in Star Wars since 1977.
Yeah, I want to throw it over to the art team on this because
Yeah.
I feel like this has some of the most beautiful art and I
Yeah.
watched the filmmaker focus and they explained in that short about how they actually had like hand painted backgrounds for most of this. So that's why it's able to really like you feel like in the cities, like you feel like it's dense. You feel like there's a lot going on in the background because they took extra care with hand painting all these backgrounds. So that was definitely what stood out to me. Also, like even in the beginning, like they open up with like a 3D shot of the Star Destroyer just heading down to the surface of the planet. I thought that was like a really nice way of starting the episode, having kind of a familiar opening to what you would see with Star Wars. Like actually, I do think most of these started off in space, like Star Wars usually does after the crawls, but that was a way to kind of like brought me in. But I love the mythology of the way they were talking about the saber and about how in their universe, the creators like the saber is like a item handed down by lineage, and it's just a sacred item that kept getting passed down through the families, and it's like in this box, and it's a really neat design for the blade itself being more of like a katana with like a flat edge rather than like the more of a cylinder kind of blade. So what'd you guys think about the art style overall?
I thought it was done really well. As you said, I didn't realize like the painted backgrounds and things like that. Like because I haven't watched the behind the scenes yet, so I didn't know that. That's interesting to know. And it just makes the art stand out. I thought the art, even before you mentioned that, I thought the art was a big positive in this episode. It's right up there with the other really good, like visually stunning episodes we've gotten so far this series. And, it's again, it was done really, really well compared to potentially, like I said, the last episode. The animation, in my opinion, wasn't great. So like going from that one to this one, I thought it was a big step up and like into, as I said, like the top 5 of this show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought the animation for this episode was really really good. I thought the 3D Star Destroyer like was amazing. I
Yep.
thought that's what we were going to get, but they transitioned into the 2D, which again, it made sense for how they were telling the story. Again, I can't complain about this episode much, especially with the animation. And I'll just jump ahead and say it. I mean, this was a 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay. Another 10 out of 10, man. Oh, man, I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear your final thoughts on Visions because I feel like you have a lot to say to wrap this whole thing up. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to give scores, I will give my score after I have this one cool point to make. So I feel like this really paid attention as like as a kind of a canon guy to the stormtrooper designs and stuff because like I had to actually pause the first time I didn't catch this. I was like I seen the K2SO KX security droid they were fighting. I seen a dark trooper that they were fighting, which was really cool, coming right off of Mando season 2. At one point, you had like literally the troopers from Han's solo Star Wars story that were on the speeder bikes. You could tell there's certain helmets, like they were in the movie for a matter of 5 seconds. They put them in here. They put a Corsair class Raider Corvette from Inferno Squad's like personal transport that she lands on at the end. So there is a lot of really good nods to like vehicles and Empire stuff. So I got to give it extra points just for putting that stuff in there. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to give this one a 9 out of 10. This is in top 3 for me when it comes to Star Wars Visions, and I'll throw it over to Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo pretty much what everything that both of you said. I thought, the visuals were really good. I really did like the animation actually, like the transition between the 3D to the 2D. Like I thought that was a really cool creative idea on how to do things, just because that's something we normally don't see. So that was a nice creative liberty they took there. And just overall, as I said earlier, the story, like the family concepts, the idea that you don't have to be blood to be part of the family. Like I thought it was done and executed really well. And for me, I would have to give this one a 9 out of 10 as well.
So there you go, 9s and 10s across the board for this one. getting into the last one. We made it, guys. This is the last Visions short out right now. Hopefully, we get more, of course. But this one is called Akakiri, and this is also from Science Saru, the same people that brought us TOB1. So this one is more of a kind of like a mysterious kind of one. It's really based more from what I've been hearing people off the Hidden Fortress. You got this mysterious warrior that comes down to this planet in response to what is happening at the palace. There's something going on, a coup at the palace. One of the princess gets back out of in exile, and she requires the help of this Jedi. And across the way, they find these different guides, and they finally make it there. And it turns out by the end of this guy turns to the dark side. So I feel like this one, it wasn't really it didn't really resonate a whole lot with me right from the first viewing. I had to watch this thing twice because it just wasn't very clear to me. It was definitely more intellectual than any of the other ones on here, with the different flashbacks and different things. Like it ended, I was like, okay, I'm not sure I got what exactly happened here. But like the animation definitely reminded me of something like Samurai Jack or the Tarkovsky's Clone Wars. The way that was designed, it very gave me that feelings that evoke that. But yeah, overall, there's lots of vibes to the sequel trilogy in this one. This is one of the ones where they actually went through and they're like, hey, let's maybe cherry pick like resurrecting somebody from the dead. Or it had also the Revenge of the Sith vibes where it's like, somebody getting tempted by the dark side to save somebody's life, essentially. So that was cool how they actually nodded to the prequels and the sequels at the same time. So I'm going to throw it over for impressions here to Ben first this time around.
Yeah, this one definitely did not work for me.
Oh, okay.
Just because to me, like, again, it all comes down to whatever Disney. I guess Disney they or Lucasfilm, I guess they really wouldn't have known which episodes were going to be the big hits or which ones weren't. So maybe that's why. Because like my first thought after that was over, I was like, man, this is how this show's ending. Like,
yeah.
I was like, well, that was kind of a thud, just because it's like, if they would have ended it, I love the Ninth Jedi episode, but if that would have been the finale of the show, man, people would have been buzzing even more, I feel like. Or even the twins, or the duel, like things like that. I feel like you could have potentially had people buzzing a little more. But this episode, as you said, Chris, I felt like it was a bit much for me. Like, I'm into like movies and shows, and like, I mean, heck, I took a few film classes in college and things. But like, to me, I had to watch this one twice as well, because when I got to the end of it, I was like, I don't know what I just watched. Like, I did not follow the story at all. And I didn't even have my phone. Like, I set my phone to the side on the second viewing, because you know how we all are when we're streaming at home. You check your phone here and there, or things like that. Just natural. Like, everybody has a phone addiction now. So like, the thing is, even the second viewing, I was like, you know what, maybe I was just like looking at my phone during key parts or something, and I put it on silent, and I put it face down on the coffee tables, just so I wouldn't see it or anything. And still, like, I got to the end of it, and I was like, man, it was okay, but I was like, I still don't really know what I just watched.
Yeah.
It just didn't land for me, like story wise, like it just wasn't connecting.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely needed. Well, I had to watch the filmmaker focus extra on this, because they actually explained about the red mist and how he's having like calls to the dark side every time he has like one of those crazy flashbacks. So it wasn't clearly evident, and I really hope that like future stories don't require you to watch like the director's cut or something like that to really get the grasp, because most of us should be hopefully able to like kind of deduce and watch these things and enjoy them without having to rack our brains. But I'm going to throw it over to Milton.
I'm gonna just keep this short. This episode was trash. Like, I'm just being real. Like, I you're right. You know what, Ben? I didn't know. I knew what I was watching, but I didn't know what I was watching, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I just did not like this episode. Like, I mean, yeah, the animation kind of had that Samurai Jack feel to it. You're right, and I love that show. Like, Samurai Jack is fire.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
but it wasn't Samurai Jack. Clearly, it was so slow. I'm like, what are we doing? Do something. Like those guides, or like those guides were trash. Like I'm just being real, man. I can't hold. Like it was just like legit. I could not even pay attention to this episode, and I watched it all the way through, and at the end, whenever like, because at first I'm thinking like it's a flashback, or it's a flash vision of him seeing how it could play out,
Yeah.
and like he actually killed her. Spoilers, and he joined the dark side and did the whole dyad thing that Palpatine did in Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, this shit is stupid. Like I did not like this episode at all. I thought it was honestly the worst episode in the whole series. Like facts. Like this episode is not rewatchable for me. I would probably watch 1 through 8 and not watch 9. I'm like, this makes no sense. It just was It was a goofy episode. I think they were trying to give us something different, which I'm okay with, but it just didn't land for me. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it's the whole thing of creators, as we talk about, like, we'll reference sports things, but it's the whole thing of like, okay, if I'm on offense and you're on defense, I'm thinking, you're thinking, I'm thinking, you're thinking, I'm thinking, you're thinking this. Like that's what it was. Like they were way overthinking it. Like, don't get me wrong, Star Wars shouldn't be like super, super, super simple. But Star Wars is a simple property. Like there's simple concepts, like the family concepts we mentioned in the last episode, the Ninth Jedi's concepts of like the Force and just all the spirituality of the Force. But those are not like super simple concepts, but they're complex enough where everybody can get them. Like I guarantee you anything, if you show that last episode to a 12-year-old, they're gonna have no clue what that was about. And all the other episodes, like, as you said, people can connect with like the last one or the Night Jedi or the twins even. The twins, it wasn't Chris's favorite episode, but kids can connect with that because it's just over the top action anime. Like they can connect with that. But like this last episode, to me, like when we got to the end of it, I was like, dang, this is the way you're ending the series. Sure, these are all standalone episodes and everything, so it's not
this should have been like you Chris, you said, or Ben, you've mentioned this before about Bad Batch. Like if this was a mid-season finale, okay,
yeah,
okay, I can see this. Like it's kind of like I don't know if you guys are professional wrestling fans, but it's kind of like with a pay-per-view, you have like 3 or good 4 matches that are over the top, crowds hyping on fire. Then you got that let me up match where you want to let the crowd die down a little bit. Let them get their drinks in them. Let them get their breath back. Then you hit them with like a big, 12-man battle royale to get them back into the match again. This was placed wrong. If this would have been like episode 4, because what was 4? 4 was the Village Bride.
So let's just move it all back.
So let's say this was. Cause I'm actually looking at the episodes right now. So let's say you put this as episode 5. So you got Village Bride, episode 5, then Ninth Jedi. You're like, okay, because then that would mentally get me ready for, okay, I'm now relaxed. It brought me down. Then Ninth Jedi hits. You're like, whoa, like, okay, I'm now back in it. And then you can take the next 4 episodes and end it correct, like end it, on a high note.
Or even just have this episode. I keep protesting for moving the Ninth Jedi to the finale, but have this episode be the penultimate episode, so everybody dies down before the finale, and then boom, there you go.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing at all, because you want to get them attuned of like, okay, I can see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to make me think a little bit, but how are they going to end this? That's a good point too. So I just did not like this episode. Maybe it was just placed wrong. I'm sure they gave a great effort. I'm sure they tried to tell the best story they could. And Chris, maybe I need to go back and watch. You said these are on. What's the extra episodes we need to watch or something?
The filmmaker focus. If you just go over to the extra tab, it has like a little 6 to 7 minute feature out on each episode.
So maybe I need to go back and watch that and maybe get the perspective of it, which I probably will. But it's like, man, I shouldn't have to go for that. It's like, what are y'all doing? And like I said, I don't want to be negative or a Debbie Downer, but it's like, it just wasn't. It was not good. So, ugh.
So let's give score on this one then. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10 for this one. I feel like it just, again, like what we've been harping at for the last few minutes here, it could have just been cleaned up with some more explanation of what is
Hmm.
actually happening. I feel it was a little just misleading. So throwing it over to Milton.
This one, oh God, this was a 3 out of 10. It just wasn't enjoyable. Like I mean, again, I like some of the visuals worked for me. I can see the struggle, like the old tropes of like, you know, like Anakin, where he's like, I'm doing this for you because I love you, and you clearly see this Jedi's in some type of like, he's got a lot of like issues with himself when it comes to the balance. So that was okay. I respect that. Other than that, man, like this episode was not good. 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I
And
would.
Ben.
God, you guys are always ending with the dark side, the lowest score over here.
Ugh.
I would. It was a bad episode. I will never. I can 100% say I will never watch that again ever.
Right.
I have no reason to watch it. To me, like don't get me wrong, I will check out the behind the scenes things, but that will not affect my score whatsoever of the episode because to me, what I've always been a believer of what is put on screen is like you should get the full context of whatever you're watching within the time frame of what you're viewing. So like, you shouldn't have to have a behind the scenes to explain it. Because that means you didn't do a good job of telling the story in the time frame you were given. So like I just thought it was really bad overall. Like I said, I'm never gonna watch it again. I'll watch all the other episodes, 1 through 8. They're all fun. I'll watch I didn't even like the Tatooine Rhapsody one very much, but I'll watch that 10 out of 10 times over this. But like this one, the animation didn't sit well with me. As I said, I watched it twice and still didn't know what happened really, or like it was just really choppy. And to me, I would have to give this episode a 2 out of 10. Like I thought it was really bad. Overall, just didn't work for me. But also to end things on a positive note, just to throw out, and you guys can like kind of think of it while I'm talking too, just your overall season score. I would say for like this show, like minus this last episode, I feel like overall this whole show for me is I would say a 9 out of 10, or yeah, I would say about a 9 out of 10 because about every episode was really good. Like, you have the Ninth Jedi, you have the duel, you have the Lop and Chop or Ocho, Lop and Ocho. Like you have that one. You have the twins. Tatooine Rhapsody. I mean, we get Boba Fett in it. That's cool. Like those type of things. The Village Bride. Like every other episode was really, really good. So for me, overall, like the overall, like wide storytelling for the show was really, really done really well, just because of the fact, as I alluded to earlier, this is what Star Wars was meant to be overall. Like, it's not getting influenced by BS American politics of like pleasing Twitter. Like most of the storytellers for this series, like you can tell they weren't influenced by the dumb stuff we see on social media. They made Star Wars what it was meant to be. And, hats off to like all of these creators for doing that and not just like caving into like the different political things we see these days in other properties. So like, hats off to them for making their own unique stories, still incorporating like overall like Star Wars narratives. And like for me, like it just makes the series a 9 out of 10 as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really going to give score on this season entirely because it's kind of hard when you have like different people doing different stories. But like, I'll kind of piggyback off you to say about a 9 out of 10. I mean, this is new Star Wars that has huge impact, I feel like, on the entire fandom. I mean, there's for a number of reasons, right? First one, just very superficial. Hey, we got all these episodes dropped on a single day, right? We haven't had anything like that in Star Wars released since like 2012 with like the release of Netflix with the Clone Wars season 6, where it's like, I remember that was the last time I binged Star Wars because everything else I watch on a weekly basis as it's released. So getting that kind of experience for the Disney Plus era, just getting these things dropped and then literally waking up from like 8 o'clock to like 12 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm watching all these things. I'm watching all the behind the scenes extra stuff on it, just soaking them all in.
All right.
was a neat experience in its own. And you know, not that you had to do that. I know Milton, you took a couple days to just kind of soak them in as you would go, as you had time. But it was definitely an interesting way of releasing content with it being a new medium, with Lucasfilm just being like, hey, look, we're going to try something new. Let's just throw all the episodes out right there, which, you know, also can show like their confidence maybe and be like, hey, we're pretty sure that people are going to like this. Let's just put it all out on a single day. So that was a one big thing. But also for me, myself, as somebody who does not even really like anime, not because I'm there to spite it or anything, I just don't think that the art design and the cultural aspects that often are, you know, are in anime are something that I really like a whole lot. So, but you know, I'll try anything mostly anything when it relates to Star Wars. So yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I think it was really masterfully done. These studios telling their side of the story of Star Wars and having no strings attached, being like, hey, we're not like beholden to the canon. We could literally make this and include our own, you know, ways of being brought up, our own ways of being raised in the Far East, which is a lot different than us growing up here in America. So they're bringing their experiences and their past into Star Wars, while still every single one of these did a great job of, you know, making it feel like it's Star Wars just enough to know that, hey, this is Star Wars, but also here's a bunch of these new ideas, and these ideas that are fresh and it's nice to see. And, you know, a week later, you know, talking about this right now, I want to go back and watch these like immediately again when I have the chance, because like every time I talk about them, I feel like I have more of appreciation about them. And we don't know how long, you know, this thing is going to have legs, you know, as far as like the talking points, right? As great as it is to release all the episodes on one day, we know from the fact with a lot of Netflix series, like you kind of have a very quick half-life on that, where they'll just like it dies down pretty quickly because then everybody's looking to the next new thing. So, you know, just quick thoughts that I don't want to ramble on too much, but and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about different things here. But I want to give Milton some time to talk about just like visions overall and how it affected you.
Yeah, overall, I enjoyed Visions. I didn't think I would. I mean, I just, from even hearing about what it was potentially going to be, I didn't think I would really enjoy something like this. But overall, I liked it. I think it was the majority of episodes were very well told. It took a lot of chances, which it should with a new property like this. And going to a foreign culture of, was it, a lot of these Japanese studios of making Star Wars was something that was very good looking back on it, because again, a lot of Star Wars is based out of Kurosawa Japanese films, and you know, themes and you know, disciplines of that culture. So it was cool to see how it was something new, something fresh, but very much very similar in a lot of ways to what George Lucas wanted. I thought a lot of the animation was very well done. It was great. Some of it didn't hold up for me, but again, it's something different. Overall, I thought this series brought a lot of potential for new characters, new stories that can be told, maybe in other mediums. Maybe we might get a live action Ninth Jedi show or whatever someday. It'd be kind of dope. Um, Also, we might get, and with Chris, you know, we might get comic books. You know, I believe one of these actually is becoming a comic book, right? The Ninth Jedi,
Oh, the Duel's getting a novel
the
on
Duel.
October 12th.
That's what
Yeah.
it was.
Yep.
So, like it says, so we have an opportunity to get that into a novel. But let's be real here: the Ninth Jedi was so well received that could become a novel, or maybe a mini series for all we know. So again, I think it was great that they pushed the envelope with this. I don't know if you, Chris, did you score this overall for the series?
Yeah, I just give it a 9 out of 10 for
Yeah,
cohesiveness. I'm just like, you know, it
yeah. I
is
would
just, yeah.
say, yeah, I would say this is a. I think because my last score probably dropped my score a little bit. I say it's 8.75 out of 10, potentially a 9, just because that last episode didn't do it for me. Um, but overall, this is a good series. I would recommend this to any Star Wars fan, or even any average person who likes Star Wars. Says, hey, I want to see what's new about Star
Mhm.
Wars. And hey, go check this out. It may not be your liking when it comes to animation. However, it's very good in storytelling of Star Wars.
Right? Like another thing we have to really hit home here is the fact that these were only 15 to 20-minute episodes, and most of them did really well with world building in such a short amount of time. Like it's incredible that these people were able to like introduce us to the characters, introduce us to the conflict, and like most of them had a pretty good resolution. Now some of them had left off on like, hey, there could be future stories, and that leads into like, hey, look, like these could have all been pilots. Now Lucasfilm's looking at let's get the most rated ones and let's make that into their own series or have a Visions 2. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure we'll find out on November 12th with Disney Plus Day when they're going to talk more about Star Wars or whenever the next this thing in December like they did last year could be. But I think the future bodes very well. This is new territory for Lucasfilm, going outside of like being so constrained with everything. And it's nice being constrained because then you have quality that is going to be consistent. For the most part, we've gotten some things here and there that not great, even though they're canon, right? Obviously, not everything's great with canon, but it is pretty cool to see these things kind of just like the creators just going crazy with these. And I'll say, like as I said before, not a fan of anime, but I'm more intrigued with anime now. Like this actually kind of was like the gateway to anime. I feel like it's a good gateway to anime because with all these different studios, not only are they telling different stories, but the animation styles are completely different. So it's like, hey, if you like this kind of animation, check out the studio's like most prominent work, right? So I want to watch things like Milton was referencing, like Cowboy Bebop. I know that's getting like a Netflix live action series. Maybe I want to check out the anime before that comes out, or maybe I want to watch one of Production IG's great hits, which is Ghost in the Shell. Maybe I want to check that out, so I'm more inclined to like show appreciation to this since, Star Wars is such a big thing for me. If I could see it through like the Star Wars lens, that could open up my mind more. Be like, hey, anime is not such a thing that I don't think I'll like as much. It's just I have to get used to just the way the stories are told or whatever. And I think this helped out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can echo all that. Like, I think it's a really good gateway, to potentially, for audiences potentially like yourself who, may have not been so keen, or you've seen anime project and you up to this point, anyways. I'm assuming, Chris, that like you see an anime thing and you just skip it on the guide or skip it on Netflix, like you don't even probably look at it. So like, there's probably a lot of people who just don't even give anime a piece of time, I guess. And now maybe Star Wars is introducing a whole new crowd of people into the world of anime because, as you said, like it got me almost in the mood to like go, oh, like let me go and watch an anime, like I got,
Yep.
it's kind of like it kind of gets you in the mood to like watch those type of projects. So I think that's a big bonus to it. And a good thing with this series as a whole is just the fact that even if you watch only an episode or two, unless you only watch the final episode, but if you watch any of the other 8, I feel like if you just throw a dart, pick one, and it's pretty solid, good Star Wars for the most part, and it's a good introduction ground to potentially people just getting into the Star Wars fandom. Like maybe you just have someone who has Disney Plus and they're just watching like non-Star Wars things and they see this Visions thing and they're like, oh, let's check this out. And they watch an episode and, they become a Star Wars fan. Like, that's great. And I'm sure there are some people that did do that. So, I think this series, it's really cool because it hits like all walks of life, as we talked about in the last podcast, as well as this one. Like, it hits so many different people, like, you with your music background, or Milton being adopted, or, me just like really being into like the mythology of Star Wars, like those type of things. Like, it hits everybody so differently. And, that's the big part of this that I feel like needs to be talked about more just in general, like from the general masses, that like, the creators of this show were really, viewing Star Wars from a good, diverse lens. Like, we always want diversity in our culture, and, until it's differing from our opinions. So like this show, though, did a really good way of bringing diversity to Star Wars in terms of storytelling, in terms of characters, whether the leads were male or female, or like alien rabbit thing, like any of those things, like that's just really cool. And for Star Wars to do that, like that was, executed really well. And I can't wait to see whatever project they do next, because I have a good feeling that after all the social buzz, I'm pretty sure we're either going to get a season 2 of this show, or as you said earlier, like one of these episodes, they're just using it as a pilot. Like that's literally what it's going to be, I feel like. And I think there's potential for it being the Ninth Jedi, just because I think that was the most talked about, I feel like, generally, because you've seen it trending. You've seen all kinds of different people talk, like bigger known people talking about it. And I think we could potentially see that down the line. I'm not sure if we'll hear about it getting announced on the November 12th thing, just because it's so soon. But then again, we might, just because, you could keep feeding off the buzz.
Yeah, so those were our thoughts on Star Wars Visions, and we definitely want you guys to chime in the comments, or if you're listening, leave us some feedback, outerrimtransmission@gmail.com, and we'd certainly like to hear your thoughts, and definitely looking bright for the future of Star Wars anime, whether it's Visions, whether Visions has an official mini series or something based off one of these shorts. We are looking with great interest upon Star Wars Visions. So just some quick housekeeping. So usually we go live every Friday around 9 o'clock Eastern. As I've mentioned earlier, I will be at New York Comic Con, so we're going to be pre-recording our episode, which will still come out on YouTube at 9 o'clock next week. But just in case any big news breaks and you guys wonder like why the heck we weren't talking about it, it's because we're recording it earlier in the week than we usually do. So that being said, we're going to talk about all the news that dropped this week with the opening dates of Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. We'll be talking about Galaxy of Sounds, which was kind of shadow dropped on Disney Plus, which I really enjoyed. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Book of Boba Fett and what it could mean for releasing towards the end of December and everything else coming out after and before that on Disney Plus. So you guys can tune in, of course, next week. And if you guys see me walking around New York Comic Con, it's going to be a little bit smaller of a show this year. Come say hi. I'll probably have some free stuff to give you guys. Like I said, the stickers and the pins and whatnot. So I'm always looking to just chill and have a good conversation with like-minded folks, which is why I love going to conventions and for them to start up once again. As far as the YouTube channel, you guys can check out my reviews for the comics I mentioned earlier. That's basically the only thing I think I put up there in the last week or so. So definitely make sure you go ahead and subscribe to youtube.com/Starrapter if you guys are listening to this on Spotify or any of your podcast platforms. And if you're watching us, go ahead and support the podcast by simply subscribing on whatever service you like to use, whether it be Apple Music or Google Music or podcasts or whatever it is. We're basically on everything. So just search Outer Rim Transmission. And if you would like to buy a shirt from our official merch store on teespring.com, Outer Rim Transmission will have the link in the podcast feed and in the YouTube comments. So do you guys have anything left to say for today's video, episode number 27?
Not really. I mean, you could just find me at Real Ben Maynard on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll just be talking about Star Wars and fitness and sports, and that's pretty much my life.
Yeah, man. What about you, Milton?
Pretty much just want to say I appreciate all the support that we get on the podcast. Again, this is great that we get to talk to the fans and interact with you guys as much as we can. Follow me at Milton Weber 7 on Twitter. I usually just like to chat it up about mostly sports. But yeah, hit me up. We talk to Star Wars or talk sports.
So there you have it. You can follow Milton over there and Ben on Twitter, and of course me, Starrapter, on Twitter as well. So that's gonna do it for the gang here. We were joined by Milton and Ben and me here, and that's gonna do it for episode number 27 of Outer Rim Transmission and Transmission. All right, right at that.